Recently, I saw this.
This is one of the worst solar installs I've ever seen, and when the customer said 2 words, solar together, I just knew that we were in for some shocking finds.
And I thought it's time I explained what solar together is, and why, according to the over 400 one-star reviews on Trustpilot, it's causing so many poor quality installations. Here are just 2 of those 400 one-star reviews. My whole experience was a nightmare. I would like to think that this was due to the totally useless contractor appointed for our area. However, this does beg the question, how were these substandard contractors ever appointed in the first place? Charged £150 for a survey which they won't refund. Supposedly 20% cheaper through the scheme, but other suppliers were better value for money, as well as cheaper, faster, and didn't charge for the survey. Installer was based miles away, so I don't know what will happen if I have a problem. On Google, as at November 2024, 27% of the reviews were 1 star. And while it's one thing to have a 1 in 4 chance of a bad experience when you're buying a £5 cable on Amazon, solar panels are a 25-year investment, where it's crucial to prioritise return on investment, not the cheapest system. There are a lot of reviews talking about poor quality service, with installers not fixing the installations when they go wrong and not answering the phone calls from their customers. There's also a lot of talk about corners being cut on the installation and damage being caused to people's houses. The Greater London Authority, which is the office of the Mayor, has conducted an investigation into solar together. On the 8th of February 2024, this statement was published on the official london.gov.uk website. London's Solar Together scheme has so far resulted in 1,500 installations and 1,456 complaints. Nearly £1 million has been spent on promoting the scheme, and the ongoing evaluation report has no set date for completion. Well, that evaluation report was finally published in June 2024, and the Greater London Authority has made it public. I'll quote from the report in this video, and all the links are in the description. So what is the issue with Solar Together? Well, in this video, I'll explain what the Solar Together scheme is, why UK councils are promoting a Dutch company, what might be good about a group buying scheme, and what are the key problems. But firstly, if you're seriously considering going with Solar Together, I do have one suggestion, and that's that you also get a quote from the gold standard of solar installers, which is your local solar specialist. If you're within 50 miles of Reading, that's Spirit Energy. And in other parts of the country, there are solar specialists whose owners live locally to you and not in Holland. Solar Together is a group buying scheme. The idea being that several hundred householders place one order together, i.e. they buy in bulk, with the idea of getting a better price than if each householder ordered solar on their own. Solar Together is owned by a Dutch company called iChooser. We'll see how much profit they make from the scheme later in the video. And the schemes are actively promoted by local councils, to the tune of £1 million in London, so that the councils can show that they've taken positive steps to hit their net zero targets. Note that neither Solar Together nor the local council have any legal responsibility whatsoever for the quality of the installation. Your contract is only with the installer. Letters go out to local residents who express their interest by giving some brief details of their roof and their electricity usage. Solar Together then collates over 400 houses and invites bidders to install all of these roofs. And the lowest price wins. And that's where the problems start. Solar is an investment decision. It's not about buying the cheapest system. It's about buying the system that gives you the best financial or carbon return. You have to be confident that you're getting a system designed and installed by an experienced company that will do a high quality installation that won't have any issues. You also need to choose an installer that will be around for 25 years to offer support. When Spirit Energy designs a solar system, we spend a lot of our time optimizing the system to give the maximum return possible for the roof. We take into account the size of the roof, the shading, the orientation, how much electricity you use, and which components will give the best performance and warranty for the money. See our case study where I documented my client's entire solar journey from inquiry to installation. It's a great example of the technical work that we put into every system we install. We also invest time getting to understand all the latest solar panels and inverters as soon as they're released, because solar technology is improving all the time. Now, if you want to win a job by simply quoting the lowest price, you could just specify the smallest system that looked reasonable, but that would make a nonsense of the whole thing. So Solar Together have put some minimum requirements in their contract with installers to ensure that that doesn't happen. But here's what the independent report paid for by the GLA says. Some elements of the PV solar equipment specified by iChooser are lower than would typically be expected of a domestic rooftop solar PV specification, which will have likely contributed to some of the cost reduction. The report then lists 13 discrepancies compared to what would typically be expected of a domestic rooftop solar PV specification, including minimum solar panel efficiency is stated to be 18.1%. This is lower than the 22% efficiency that you'll find in modern solar panels. The report summarises by saying, in particular, the installation of lower quality inverters will have reduced cost. The consequence of this decision by iChooser may be increased warranty claims and complaints in the future. The report also says, an anonymous installer involved in the Solar Together scheme outside London raised concerns with the quality of equipment that would be required to result in a successful bid for the work due to the low costs. And that's the point. Because the Solar Together scheme simply goes to the lowest bidder, the easiest way you can win the bid is to specify the smallest system using the cheapest components with the shortest warranties that you can make fit the minimum requirements that Solar Together have specified. Solar Together themselves make money from every system that's installed, so they're also incentivized to make those systems as cheap as possible. Now, normally, if you're getting solar, then you'd probably get at least 3 quotes, and if one quote is very cheap, then you'd want to understand why. But possibly, and I'm speculating here, when a customer gets a quote that's been endorsed by their local council, and when they feel they're part of a group buying scheme involving many of their neighbours, they make the assumption that they don't need to do their own due diligence. Let's move on to the next problem with Solar Together. This arises from the selection procedure of the installer. When you're picking one installer to install over 300 systems, it's obviously crucial that you pick the highest quality installer to do the job. And of course, it's going to be very important to any council that is going to endorse Solar Together that iChooser make a very careful choice as to which installers are allowed to take part in the bidding. And yet, the report from the Greater London Authority says, iChooser has not disclosed the minimum score required for supplier pre-qualification, making it impossible to evaluate the set quality standards or determine if the quality threshold was appropriate. Which makes you wonder why the council would endorse such a scheme before demanding that very basic level of information. There's an article in The Guardian from March 2023, which refers to the problems caused when one of the 3 installers chosen for the scheme began to go bust. The article says, Green Energy Together Limited was the only winning bidder for contracts in London in 2021. And despite 385 complaints to the GLA about poor service, it was chosen again by iChooser in 2022. This is what the report for the GLA says. iChooser ignored red flags highlighted by the Renewable Energy Consumer Code and proceeded regardless with the appointment of Green Energy Together Limited. And this is why the urgent report was required in the first place. Because Green Energy Together went bust before they finished the installations. In fact, of the 5 companies that installed for Solar Together from 2020 to 2023, 2 are now bust, and 1 has accumulated losses of £5.6 million according to their latest accounts. And remember, your contract isn't with iChooser or with your local council, it's with the installer. And 2 of the 5 installers in the London scheme are now bust. So why are so many installers on the Solar Together scheme going bust? Well, again, I'm speculating, but I see 3 problems. Firstly, installers are bidding on hundreds of installs with limited information. And it's really tough to do enough work to analyse all those roofs. It's really easy to get your calculations wrong and underestimate the true cost of doing the work, which on a very large contract like this could easily cause severe financial problems. Next, even if you do calculate the work required accurately, You'll only win the job if your quote is lower than anyone else is willing to do the work for. And that's a tough place for any business to be in. You most likely have to give such a thin price that you can't afford to do a high quality installation without cutting corners. Most solar installers work very hard to get a consistent amount of work so that they can keep their staff busy at all times. At Spirit Energy, we have 10 full-time installers and 20 designers in the office. That's 30 people we have to pay wages to every month, regardless of how many installations we have. 350 houses in 6 months would max us out for the whole 6 months, and we're not a small installer. For us to take on this work, we'd have to subcontract 10 more installers for 6 months. And that's just not something we're comfortable doing. We just can't imagine sending installers to someone's house when we don't know them personally and can't guarantee the quality of their work. We think the best way to provide a top-class service every time is to have a consistent team that is used to working together, not just on the roof and in your house, but in our office as well. So now we've looked at how hard it is to be an installer for one of these schemes, let's take a look at how iChooser themselves are doing from Solar Together. iChooser Limited is the UK branch of a Dutch company, iChooser Holdings BV. We can't see much from the UK published company accounts because iChooser take the opportunity to give the very minimum amount of information they're legally required to give, but we can see that in the year ending December 2021, assuming they paid 19% corporation tax, they made a profit of £961,000. And that's just in that 1 year. A year in which they had just 9 employees. In the year before that, the profit was £517,000. And these numbers are after any money they paid to their directors or to their Dutch holding company. That's not a bad return for a company with 9 employees that doesn't actually do any installs or have any legal responsibility to any of the customers that participated in the Solar Together group buying scheme. In summary, solar installation is not about the cheapest price. It's about designing the best system for your particular situation. Don't rely on the council or the fact that you're in a group buying scheme. Do the due diligence yourself and get quotes from at least 3 installers. Preferably one of which is what we think of as the gold standard, a local solar specialist that has been around for a long time.